Your name, please.
Anthony Hayward.
You were in the senior leadership, weren't you?
I was.
And it's true, isn't it, that the culture of an organization is shaped by the leaders in it, that people do what leaders do. That's true, isn't it?
I believe that the role of leaders is very important in shaping the culture of an organization.
Is it true that the culture of an organization is shaped by the leaders in it, and that people do what leaders do? And that that's been proven. Excuse me, let me finish.
I'm sorry, I thought you had. I
And
apologize.
that's been proven time and time again. That's true, isn't it?
As I said, I believe that the role of leaders is very important in shaping the culture of an organization. It's not unique, it's not the only thing, but it's an important thing.
Is the following statement true? Quote, "The culture of an organization is shaped by the leaders in it. People do what leaders do. That's been proven time and time again." End quote. Is that true or not?
As I've said to you, there is more to. Leaders are very, very important. Very important. They take a major role in shaping the culture of an organisation. There are other things that you need to put in place besides having the right leadership to shape the culture of an organisation.
Turn to tab 2, page 22.
Which exhibit?
Exhibit 6000. This is the speech you gave to the business school at Stanford, and did you or did you not say, quote, "What I'm very certain about is that a culture of an organization is shaped by the leaders in it. People do what leaders do. That's been proven time and time again." Did you or did you not say that?
I did say that. I did say that.
Okay, excuse me, 6001, tab 1, page 37. Did you give this testimony in Congress in the middle of the page? Sullivan, colon, "Do you think the other companies have different or stricter guidelines with their safety and spend more money on it? Because you probably compare yourself to other companies, I'm sure." Was your answer, "I can't make a detailed comparison, but I can be clear that what we've done, we've invested billions of dollars, we've recruited thousands of people, and we've changed significantly our processes, systems, and procedures in the course of the last 3 years." Did you say that?
I stand absolutely right.
You stated, quote, "We've invested billions of dollars and we've recruited thousands of people," right?
Correct.
And it is true that when you took over in 2007, BP's financial performance, as you said, was appalling, wasn't it?
Correct.
And you had 2 years to fix it, didn't you? You said that too, didn't
I
you?
said that in that speech.
And one of the things you did, if we look at tab 2, page 19, that's the speech, exhibit 6000.
So what page number?
19.
Page 19, Tony.
And tell me whether or not I read this correctly at line 13. "We had lost track of the competition, and we reinstated very rigorous competitive benchmarking across the country. The most profound level, or the most rudimentary level actually, it was looking at our performance as a company against our principal competitor, Shell. And in the second quarter of 2007, on an annualized basis, we had a gap of $8 billion relative to Shell in terms of what we should have been generating from our asset base versus what they were. And we use that as a burning platform. You know, we use that as a rallying cry behind this big change that we have subsequently been driving through BP." Did I read that correctly?
You did. Am I allowed to state the context in which it was said?
If your lawyers want to ask you about the context, they can ask you about the context. I asked you whether or not you said it.
And I said prior to
Did you
saying
say
that
it?
in the speech, we created something called, which we referred to as the Forward Agenda, which was a focus on safe, reliable operations, having the right people with the right skills in the right place.
Did
That
you
was the
also
first-
say the words I just read?
I did. After I had said what I just said.
And then BP had a very bad fourth quarter in 2007 after you became CEO, didn't it?
think that's probably right.
And you sought help. You called in the investment bank, Morgan Stanley, didn't you? And specifically someone named Neil Perry, who was an oil and gas specialist, correct?
I didn't seek help from Morgan Stanley.
Did you
I
seek
asked
advice?
No. I asked Neil Perry to do one thing and one thing only, to come to a management conference and give a unblemished assessment of the performance of BP at that time. And that is what he did.
And did he recommend cost-cutting and austerity measures?
He recommended nothing. It wasn't
He recommended
a case
nothing.
of asking Mr. Perry to make recommendations. I asked him to come to a management conference for a couple of hours and give an objective, independent assessment of how he saw the industry and how he saw BP in the industry at that time. He was in no position to make any recommendations about anything.
Did he make any suggestions about cost
He
cutting?
may have done, but they were of no consequence, and they were not something that anyone was going to listen to, because he had no standing to make that sort of...
So you invited him to come make a speech at a BP meeting, and he had no standing to make any suggestions.
I didn't, like I said, I asked him to come and give an objective assessment of the industry and where BP stood in the industry. I did not ask him for recommendations. If he gave recommendations, very interesting, but they weren't asked for and they weren't acted on.
Did he give a recommendation related to cost-cutting and austerity measures?
I don't recall, because as
But
I
what
said,
you know
I
is
wasn't
that you-
listening for that.
Yeah, what you know is that you did not engage in cost-cutting and austerity measures because of BP's financial condition as of 2007.
Am I going to be allowed to explain what I did?
No, you
at
just
any
get to
point?
answer the questions.
Well, the answer to the question is I engaged in investment into the operations, in terms of investment into people and investment into plant. And I engaged in cost reductions above the operations.
Tab 25. You gave a speech that was reported in The Guardian on September the 26th of 2007, correct?
Correct.
It states in the first sentence, Tony Hayward, the new chief executive of BP, is to instigate a thorough management shakeup in an attempt to refocus the group following a dreadful third quarter. Is that true?
Correct.
Then it says in paragraph 3, Mr. Hayward outlined new plans to slash management layers from 11 to 7, redeploying some staff and removing others to kickstart an oil group that he believes has become overcautious. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
It then states, he told a staff meeting of American workers in Houston that the company's share price performance, compared with that of its peers, was now at its lowest ebb since 1992. Is that true?
Correct.
And then at the bottom, quote, assurance is killing us, quote, Mr. Hayward told U.S. staff, noting that too many people were engaged in decision-making leading to excessive cautiousness. Did you say that?
I said that assurance is killing us because there was lack of clarity as to who was accountable for what. And when you don't have clarity of accountability, no one is accountable for anything.
The article goes on to say the speech in Houston builds on comments made at his first press conference for BP's half-yearly results in July that the operating performance was not good enough and he wanted change, including a 25% cut in staff at the St. James Square headquarters. Is that true?
That is correct, in sharp contrast to cutting staff in the operations.
And did you also say on the next page, quote, we can be more efficient, leaner, and fitter by ensuring we have a common and consistent way of doing things, by reducing our overheads, and doing a better job at managing our third-party spend. Did you say that?
I did, by reducing our overheads, not reducing the money we invest into our operations, or anything to do with our operations.
Tab 24.
15.
I'll hand you a document which purports to be your speech that you gave on the 17th of April 2008 at the annual general meeting. Is that what that document is?
It is.
Turn to page 3. At the top, tell me whether or not you said this in the speech you gave. Corporate simplification. There is a significant competitive gap with our peers. If we are going to close that gap, BP needs to undergo a process of change as big as anything it has achieved in the last 20 years. Our way of doing business is too complex. We are overly bureaucratic, not consistent enough, and our costs are too high. In October last year, we announced a forward agenda to simplify BP and to fundamentally change the company culture and our way of operating. Did I read that correctly?
That's correct.
And then dropping down to the next, to the 2 paragraphs below that, did you say, our objective is to reduce the corporate overhead by between 15 and 20%?
That's correct. Very significant difference in reducing a corporate overhead to reducing operating costs.
2016.
Is that document a speech that you gave on April 16th of 2009?
It is. Sorry.
And did you say when you gave in that speech on page 2, second paragraph, we set out a plan to deliver safe and reliable operations, to restore revenues, and to reduce the complexity and cost structure of BP? We've done exactly that.
I
end
did.
quote. Is that what you said?
I
All right.
did.
And then on the next page, did you say in the middle paragraph, quote, at a corporate level, we began to reduce the complexity and cost base of our overheads. By the end of 2008, we had reduced our organization by around 3,000 people and are on track to exceed our original target of 5,000 by the middle of 2009. We have also eliminated nearly 20% of the senior positions. Did you say that?
I did.
And then on page 5, third paragraph down, it starts at the top with so not only.
Yes, no, I'm on the right page.
You got that?
Yeah, okay.
And did you say on the 4th paragraph or 3rd paragraph down, at BP we started our drive to counter cost inflation some 18 months ago and managed to halt that inflationary trend in 2008 despite the continued rise in oil prices for most of the year. Did I read that correctly?
I did.
Did you then say the challenge for the industry now is to bring this cost base down and to do this fast to align with new market conditions?
I
Did
did.
you say that?
I did.
And then at the bottom of the next
And then I went on to say we've been working with our suppliers to improve
I didn't
efficiency.
ask you what you went on to say.
With one
Mr.
important
Hayward.
caveat, safe and reliable operations come first, whatever the cost.
Did you say at the bottom of the next paragraph, quote, we expect our costs to fall by around $2 billion in 2009, end quote? Did you
I
say
did.
that?
Yes.
And did you say at the bottom paragraph, first sentence, quote, at BP we have a mantra, every dollar counts, every seat counts, and we intend to follow it through. Did you say that?
And I did in the context of one important caveat.
The question
safe and
was,
reliable
did you say
operations
that?
come first, whatever cost efficiency measures we undertake.
And you have repeated multiple times that the first words out of your mouth when you talk about PP are always safe and reliable. You've said that, haven't you? That's your emphasis always. Whenever you give a speech, whenever you talk about the emphasis is safe. The first words are safe and reliable, right?
Correct.
Dr. Hayward, you have before you Exhibit 6017, correct?
Correct.
And that is a speech you gave to the general meeting of BP on April the 15th of 2010.
Correct.
Correct? That was 5 days before the Deepwater Horizon blowout, correct?
Correct.
I'll ask you to turn to page 3, please, the 3rd page down. Tell me whether or not I read this correctly. I'm looking at the 4th or 5th paragraph down. The drive to increase efficiency and reduce costs remains a key focus for everyone at BP. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
In the next paragraph, in the upstream, we are leading our peer group in driving down production costs, with BP's unit cost in 2009 12% lower than in 2008. We will maintain this momentum through activity choice and in the way we manage the supply chain. In the downstream, our efficiency initiatives have reduced cash costs by more than 15% in 2009, and our goal over the next 2 to 3 years is to return costs to 2004 levels. For the group as a whole, we reduced our cash costs last year by more than $4 billion. Did I read that correctly?
You did.
And in the last paragraph, quote, and we have furthered our corporate simplification agenda, reducing headcount by around 7,500, end quote. Did I read that correctly?
Correct.
And did you then, or did you in conjunction with your speech use a PowerPoint that's attached to this speech?
I did.
All right, and if you'll turn to page 16, those numbers in the bottom right-hand corner of the PowerPoint, titled Strategic Progress in 2009. Do you have that page?
I do.
As part of your PowerPoint, did you state under corporate simplification, headcount colon, reduced by 7,500 to date, cash cost colon, down by more than $4 billion in 2009? Did you say that in your PowerPoint?
I did. These were all corporate overhead reductions. As I've said many times, the context was I'd spent a lot of time in this speech talking about safe, reliable operations before I talked about any of this.
You understood when you just answered that question that all I asked you was whether or not you said that in the PowerPoint, didn't you?
I did.
Okay. But you went on and made an explanation anyway that you weren't asked for, didn't you?
I did.
All right. Well, that's not the way the rules work. We have rules that govern this process, and they're not made by you or by me. And I would ask you to answer the question I asked you, and only the question I asked you. Would you do that? Would you do that?
I'll answer your questions.
All right. So it is your testimony that your cost-cutting initiatives and your philosophy as set out in these multiple speeches we've looked at did not flow down to drilling operations. Is that your testimony?
That is my testimony.